Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome along. We're not in the wilds of Suffolk today. As you can see, I have my Matrix background on because we're going to be discussing a subject very dear and near to my heart. And I wanted to do this today because obviously I've been talking about The Matrix. It's my favorite movie. And obviously I take most of my life from my life lessons from this movie. And one of these important life lessons that I've been trying to project and tell you about all this time is the birth certificate and the fraud of the birth certificate. So, what we're doing today is we're going to do an introduction about the subject material, which is the birth certificate, the fraud of all that, and then how we go through that and into the element under topics that we're going to be talking about. And we've brought on a gentleman today. His name's Peter Wilson. We're going to meet Peter now. He's going to give you a bit of brief background into who he is and how he got here, and then we're going to just start the discussion from there. Yeah, I hope you like what we're doing today. So welcome, Peter. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you spending some time with us and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and everything you've picked up along the way. So if you can just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in the knowledge and in the understanding of that you have now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for inviting me along. Always great to meet new people and spread the word and trying to help as many people as possible, getting this information out there and trying to help them understand the matrix that they're actually trapped into. A lot of people, truly just wander through life and not knowing that, and really I think that really is this how bad it's supposed to be? Yeah. Is it just, are we here for for all this suffrage? Is that what it's for? But yeah, so I mean, I have been studying this type of information for many years now. I've always had a feeling, that two things. Firstly, I never fitted into anything. Always felt as if I was the odd one out, all the way through childhood and, all the way through an adult life as well, being a bit of a strange sort of existence. But I've always sort of looked towards getting more information about what goes on about everything. The whole thing is people just accept whatever situations and get on with things. I mean, I can get on with things. I was in the Royal Navy for 5 years. It's a very, very difficult life to lead. I lived abroad for a lot of years as well. With absolutely zero support of anything whatsoever. You literally are on your own no matter what. So, very resourceful. But what made me sort of go into the legal side and the law side, because you're two completely separate things, was obviously my own predicament. I ended up through running a very successful martial arts business to getting involved in the property business, and we developed a portfolio of our own. We had properties rented out across the country and abroad. And it come up to the big crash that everybody knows between 2007, 2008, the Lehman Brothers and all that nonsense, and we literally within a week lost every single thing that we had, over £1 million worth of property gone in a week, including our own home. And it was just I'm looking at it. So I had followed the rules. I had done what I was supposed to have done. Everything was going fine. And how could that happen if you've done everything correct? And it wasn't just me. Yeah. I had seen a lot of people in the same boat losing everything. And
we were doing property at the same time. We lost 2 properties in that crash as well.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of other people did, and probably not even know what happened. It was what, really?
Yeah.
Why? And the thing is, when they've got these boom and busts, which is this system's designed to boom and bust.
It really absolutely
is. So the banks at the time, it's criminal really, and we'll explain sort of a lot of the background in a while. But they've pushed it so that the property prices are just going so high, and you think, well, this is wealth. When it's not. No. And then they're going to get it to such a point, and they're going to pull the plug themselves. They do it on purpose so that all the prices come crashing down. So you come into a position of being in what they call negative equity. So, i.e., you owe 200,000 and your property's worth 50, and they want it back.
Yeah.
And they either, I want the loan back, right? Well, how can you do that? You can't sell your property because it's not worth anything anymore.
Yeah.
So and they repossess, and I had seen that many times, and it's just a game, and you know to get into the securitization and the actual fractional system, the fractional, that's hard to say, fractional banking system, it's just so fraudulent. Like not many people really understand it. They might have even heard the term before, but to go into the depths of it and find out how they actually create things out of thin air it's frightening, really, but criminal.
Yeah.
You know. So really, that's why I sort of like went really deep. Now, obviously, I've looked at many different videos over the years. You know, always being a fan of David Icke, and so you know that there's something weird going on, and you know, everybody that you see like that, you know, or especially over the last 2 years, we all know what we're talking about. Anyone who says anything that makes sense gets violently attacked.
Oh yeah.
By the mainstream and you know by those that think they're in charge, and that's got to make you think. If you've got a little bit of common sense and you want to start thinking more for yourself than just thinking what they tell you to do, then you can see that's a bit odd, you know. And that happens on any walk of life. You know, you just got to look at like power in itself. I mean, like, you know, the energy and you know what they're doing to it now. But if you look at the fact of Tesla, where he proved to everyone that energy is there for free for everyone,
yeah,
it just creates itself. You know, the whole planet, whatever shape you want it to be, right? Massive. It creates electricity on its own all the time. All they're doing is harvesting it, you know. And he was showing you how to do it. And I know a few people now with their own machines that just create power, that create energy. And you don't have to plug it in.
Yeah.
It's all magnetic, and that's what we're living on, a massive magnetic, electromagnetic pulse that just creates things.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because I was talking about doing a wind turbine. I'm going to do a wind turbine build on my channel for people to see, made out of a bicycle wheel, a truck alternator, and a truck alternator and a truck battery. Because all it is, all electricity is a magnet spinning inside copper wire, gives off an electrical charge that you can store in batteries and then use it later, you know. And anybody can create one. It's not rocket science, it's not difficult, and yet here we are paying 400% extra on our energy to heat and warm our homes and to light the lights. It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like something I'm going to start really investigating in now is like more of off-grid style energy producing systems or whatever. I've seen quite a few now, looking at like wind turbines that you just mentioned there, and obviously solar, you know. But living up in the it's pouring down the rain here at the minute, but you know, but yeah, you can still do that, and there's other ways of creating this energy for yourself where you can be completely or very self-reliant. And that's what more and more people need to get their head around, is like to step out of this matrix, to escape from this prison. You know, and I've always called it like a prison planet. That was Janine just popping in there with a coffee for me, you know. Even when we first met 30 years ago, and I was just, look, this is just a prison planet, and we're all being put on here in prison. She's like, shut up, don't.
No one wants to hear it. No one wants to hear it, because no one wants to hear the truth, and that's the hard part. Even in the Matrix, he says ignorance is bliss, because when you come to this and you see the depth of the fraud and the corruption that created this system that we all live in, when you see it, you don't want to see it. No one wants to see it. No one wants to experience it. No one wants to try and pull themselves out of it, because, you know, you're going up against huge forces that don't want you to know this. So, so before we get any further, I have to prelim everything that we're going to say. I'm not a lawyer. You're not a lawyer either, are you, Peter? No. I'm not a financial advisor. Neither is Peter. We're bringing you this information for you. This is the start for you to do your own research. We're not telling you, we're not lawyers, and we're not financial advisors. We're going to give you this information that you have to go and do with it as you will. It's your decision after we give you this information. Okay. I want to prelim everything that we're going to say with that. We're going to be talking about legal statutes. We're going to be talking about law. We're going to be talking about money. We're going to be talking about a bunch of things, but it's important this is the first step for everybody that's going to take this journey, that you have to take this information and educate yourself, because everything we say is just here for educational purposes. Okay, so that's the prelim that we have to say before that we get into this information, because, you know, at the end of the day, you make your own decisions, and you have to make a decision based in what resonates with you. Is that fair?
Very, absolutely, yeah. Do your own research. You know, we're not giving anyone advice, and we're certainly not telling people what to do, but we're just going to give you information that you need to go and start researching yourself.
Absolutely. Okay. So we've got a bit of a background into you. That's how you came to be on this journey. You've been through some financial hardships, as we all have, I'm sure. And a lot of people are going through financial hardships now, which is why we're doing this video today, because we want to try and help people relieve themselves of some of those financial hardships, namely to do with debt. But firstly, you need to understand the background of where this came from, how it works, and what it means to you, and how you can pull back from it in some aspects of your life to free yourself from the bondage that's been created for you. Okay, so let's start with the history of the birth certificate, because the birth certificate, a lot of people, anyone who's watching this, I'm sure that they've heard about the fraud of the birth certificate, but the straw man. But let's put some meat on the bones of what this means, what it is, where did the history of the birth certificate, where did it come from, and how did it come to be, and what does it actually mean for people?
Well, the birth certificate itself it goes way back, but let's just talk about like where they started to introduce the birth certificate, because the birth certificate is basically putting you, right, or not you, it isn't, because it's like it's creating a man or a woman into a 2D fiction. Literally, you are now a piece of paper.
Well,
all right,
because your name's capitalized on your birth certificate, it creates a corporation for you, doesn't it? Is that correct?
Yeah. It turns you into a corporation. So if you look back to like late 1800s, the early 1900s is when they started to really try and push more people to create these birth certificates. So before that, you know, people would be getting put into either a family Bible or a parish Bible, you know, so they had a record. They still had a record of who was being born, who was dying. But now they wanted to have it much more tighter, and it's just what we're doing now is it's collecting data,
centralization of information.
There we go. So you know, and you know, you've got to see now like how much it's being centralized now, and they want it so you can't walk out your front door and they don't know where you've gone.
Yeah.
But this is when they started to do it. Now it was if you look towards, especially in the early 1900s, not just in the UK, but in the US as well, which spread it across the world, they started to offer what they call compelled benefits for you to do a service, really. So what they wanted you to do is put your babies, when they were being born, into this register. So you are registering the birth. Then they would give you maternity leave, paid maternity leave. And they would also, everybody probably knows it, they give you child benefits. So if you register your child, right, then you are going to get child benefits. You're going to get paid a weekly amount, a monthly amount, whatever it is. I know that it happens. I don't know how much it is or how they do it. Sure. You know, so in reality, you're selling your own child, but it's not a child. When you're giving birth, right? You're not giving birth, you're actually having it born. When it's being born, they are changing it by registering it. You are the informant. So you're going to create this document, and you're going to inform on your own son or daughter to turn it into a child. That is a title. So they will create you as a titled parent via the birth certificate. Now, then what happens is they put the birth certificate with, like you've just mentioned, the capitalized letters in black. So they have created a dead fictional creation. It is a corporation. Corpse being the operative part of it. It's dead. And that is how you're actually going to start reacting with another dead corporation, which is the government, and everything tied along to that government. Everybody thinks that, you know, the government is this big scary thing and you're going up against them, but it doesn't even exist.
It's a fiction of our imagination. We created the government.
Yeah, but now it's just a piece of paper.
Mhm.
Everything is just written down on bits, of paper. So even these people that are coming on your TV, like, and pretending to be something different, they are still just fictional. You might be able to see them, and they might even be able to talk, and but they are just like creations on a piece of paper.
Sure.
And you've got to try it. You've literally been cloned from birthing. So this is the whole scam from the very beginning, because when you're actually going to be giving birth, so you are in your mother's waters, they call it the waters. So you're already in maritime law. So when you're actually giving birth, the baby passes through the birthing canal. Why is it called a canal? All right, so you're actually and now this is called being born, but now they called it for being birth, giving birth. So the mother, they would used to have like labor pains. All right, now they call them contractions, because they're contracting the baby. All right, and also not only are they contracting it to put the contract on the birth certificate, which is a contract, but the contracting, i.e. making smaller the title that you have. So when we are born, right, we are born onto the earth. So we are coming from the divine. So we are under the creator, and the creator gave man dominion so that the earth is there for man and mankind. So when we are born as a master of our estate. It's ours. We were granted it by the creator.
Mm-hmm.
But what they're going to do, or the mistress, master or mistress, what they're going to do is they're going to contract again your title of master or mistress to Mr. or Miss, to try and hide the fact that you are a powerful living being, an entity that has dominion over the earth. It was granted by the creator. So the whole thing is everything is being pretended. It's all a massive pretense, and you are literally slipping into the matrix without knowing it.
Yeah.
So, if you look at it, everything is to do with the maritime law and the law of the sea and commerce. Mm-hmm. So when a ship, right, enters into a harbor, it's going to be birthed, i.e. tie up in the harbor. Then what's going to happen is it's going to have to get given a birthing certificate. What the birthing certificate is a manifest of everything that is of value on the ship, so they can tax it. So that's exactly what they're doing to these babies that are actually being born, and now they're birthing them instead. So you're born into a delivery room, right? And the delivery room, well, why is it in a delivery room? Because it's delivery comes from Bouvier's Law Dictionary, which is conveyancing, right? So it's all about contracting.
Yeah.
Right. So you're actually passing title. It says in Bouvier's Law Dictionary on delivery being conveyancing that you're actually giving title away and you cannot get it back. So that's the shocking thing, is you're actually, once you sign the birth certificate, you've actually given away a title or ownership of your own property I, which is your son or daughter is now a child, and not only that, you've actually passed it over to be the property of the state.
Yeah.
So this is how large, if that's the way, this is how immense then the actual fraud is, and they've literally created a clone. There's two of you now. They're obviously, you are there, you're flesh and blood, you are a living being, but on the paper you are now a corporation, and there's literally two of you, and the government will only ever be acting and reacting with the corporation, because they cannot deal with the living being,
with a living person. Now, question for you at this point. So we've heard about countries, what do you call it? I can't even think of the bloody word now. We are traded on exchanges. Our labor, our effort, us individuals. It's called a country's. What's the word I'm looking for? I'll come back to it. But anyway, but referring to the law of the water, I mean, everything is based on admiralty law. And I've watched a couple of videos about this. I mean, it's intriguing. Now, as you say, we are birthed from the divine. We are sovereign beings. We are birthed into this world as sovereign beings, but we're fraudulently placed into this system. Now, in legal terms, I've heard this said, fraud vitiates everything. And vitiates means that if you've entered into a contract fraudulently, which we all have because we had no idea about this birth certificate and all the fraud that goes along with it, we entered into that fraudulently because it was never explained to us the terms and conditions of entering into this contract. So that said, because if that is true, fraud vitiates everything, then it should be, in legal terms, easy enough for us to basically void that contract of our birth certificate and free ourselves. But it's not, is it?
No, it's certainly not easy because it's just such a large subject if you think about it. So, right, let's just say you're born, right, but they change it to being birthed, and you're a little child now instead of being a son or a daughter, and you've grown up and you're going to go into school. So the indoctrination continues. Now, unfortunately, parents, they actually take their part in it because they themselves haven't got the education. So I remember, like always being told, what to do and where to stand, what, always have to be good. And plus, like I was born into an extremely strict Scottish, Irish, Catholic family, and it was back in the days where, we were told you do anything wrong, you're going to burn in hell forever. And, even if it's slightly wrong, you're going to purgatory and you're going to be burning there before you, and it was like, whoa.
I went to a Catholic school. I know, I've heard the rhetoric as well.
Yeah. So it's like, but this indoctrination, and then even at the school, and this is what I'm trying to explain to people about the witchcraft, and everything is so satanic and it's all about witchcraft. And the thing is, like, people, they find it hard to believe. And I say, well, you don't need to believe it because they believe it 100%.
Absolutely. So
they are trying to put these spells on top of you, which is all words, which is why they call it spelling. Mm-hmm. So when you're in school, and you imagine, right, going back to school and you're sitting in the classroom, it's before the first lesson or whatever it is, and they're going to do the register. Okay, there's the word again, school register. So the teacher's sitting looking at you, and then they read your name out. Well, why do they? And then you have to answer, yes, sir, yes, miss, but they're looking at you anyway, so they know you're there. Why don't they just tick the book?
Yeah.
Right? This is just indoctrination of you. And not only the indoctrination of you have to do what you're told, but it's all witchcraft, because when they're reading out your name, they're not reading out your name. They're reading out the capitalized version, which is your strawman. So you are agreeing all the time. You are giving consent, tacit agreement that you are a person and not a man or woman, or in that case, a boy or girl, a living entity under the creator. And that is how powerful this is. And this is their belief. So you're actually consenting, and you have no idea that you are consenting.
For sure. So that leads me into one of the things I've written down. And it is, well, who knows this info and why is it not taught in school? That's, and this is the thing, I've had many discussions with people. The things that we're taught in school are useless. They bear no resemblance to anything that we're going to need to survive in this world. We're taught reading, writing, and arithmetic so that we can be good workers for the businesses that's creating wealth to the state. We could be good workers, and the sort of smarter amongst us are sort of made into the management roles and that kind of thing. But it is about dumbing down our society and keeping us stupid. So hang on a minute, get rid of that. Dumbing us down and keeping us stupid. So why? Well, who knows this, and how did it come to sort of being sort of talked about in public circles? How did it come to this? Who knows it? And why is it not taught in school? Is your thoughts?
Well, it's definitely not going to be taught in school because they want to teach you exactly the opposite.
Of course.
In an ideal world, in reality, right? Then if you imagine you're going to go to school and be a school, let's just say if we take it back a few hundred years, the school would be like say in your little village and your little shire, and literally the school would have been where you're going to get fresh, clean water to drink, right? How are you going to grow food to eat? How are you going to build a shelter? After that, who cares? Yeah. Right? If you can eat and you can drink fresh water and you've got somewhere to stop you freezing to death, then that's all you actually need to have a good life. And then obviously people work together, right? But in school now, like you just mentioned it there, that everything they teach is useless. Who needs algebra? Right? I don't care what
trigonometry.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the thing is, the more education that you get, the dumber you are. Indeed. That is a point. So, you know, if you look at all of the teachers or the university professors and everything, you know, what they're actually teaching, is any of it worth anything? Is any of it real? You know, and the thing is, if you look at the people who run the education, the same people that run the health, right, it's all the same people. So the Rockefellers, J.D. Rockefeller, very famous, that, you know, and he said, I want a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. So they created the education system. The Rockefellers created the education system to make sure that people stayed dumb. And then they started passing these so-called acts and statutes to say everyone must have an education. That's how good we are and how kind we are, because we're going to educate people. Aren't we nice?
We're going to educate them into what we want them to know.
Exactly. So you're going to
vilify anything we don't want them to know, like natural remedies and those kind of things that have been used for thousands of years by people to make themselves well and look after themselves. Those things have been vilified by the same people, like the Rockefellers, who came up with how to use the oil to make pharmaceutical drugs that they say are better than natural remedies. I mean, you know, as we say, if we go back to the beginning, and we are a creation of a God, or a universal consciousness, whatever you want to call it. People have a funny thing about God. We are a creation of that source energy, and yet we come into this reality with everything that we need here in this plane of reality. But yet we're told that no, forget about all that natural things that is placed here for your benefit, and go down the road of a synthetic thing that is guaranteed to give you side effects and make you unwell. I mean, it's the indoctrination is incredible.
Exactly that. So I mean, it's all coming from the same people, isn't it? So you've got the Rockefellers who, like, you're through the oil, you know, which is the fraud and scam that's being played on everybody through this is incredible. Through these people, and through the oil barons, if you want to call them that. So they did move in using the oil to start creating the pharmaceutical products, which only create you ill. So they're creating customers for life. Yeah. So you're going to become addicted to their medicines, they call them, but they're not medicines, they're just pharmaceuticals, which is like, it's all witchcraft again.
Pharmacia.
Yeah. So, you know, that's the other thing. And the same thing with the oil right now. Look at what they're doing now. They're trying to say that everything's increased in all these prices because, like, you know, we can't get the oil, and you know,
Ukraine.
Yeah, well, yeah, everything comes from there now, isn't it?
You know? I know. It's amazing.
Even good songs, apparently. You know.
Yeah, you got the leader of a war-torn country is actually out there presenting you for the Eurovision. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just unfortunate that some people just swallow it hook, line, and sinker. Well, at most hook, line, and sinker. You know, it's that's the dumbing down that's happened. It's just incredible. But you know, even on there, you know, they actually say that this word, or the term, I should say, fossil fuel. So you know, they actually used carbon. It was one of the things, and something. There was two elements that they said. Well, look, this anything that has carbon, and well, I can't remember the other one there, within the construct of the actual element, then it is organic. So if it's organic, then it must have been alive. So, you know, they completely, like, scammed a group of scientists into convincing the world that the oil was organic and come from fossil fuel, right? So they're saying, you know, if it's come from fossil fuel, it can only come from things that were alive. So that could only last for so long, so it will run out.
It's a scam, complete scam.
Yeah.
And I've heard stories of oil wells that have been run dry that are refilling.
Well, it's just because the Earth's always going to give us everything that we need.
Exactly.
You know, like, but when they do drill for oil, right? I'm not like an archaeologist or anything like that, but I do know, when I was watching these documentaries, that if you think of this is the level on the Earth where you will get these so-called fossils, all right? But when they drill for oil, it's way down here.
For sure.
The oil is far, far lower. And I've listened to like expert on oil drilling, and the scientists are saying, oh yeah, it's nowhere near what you could expect to find fossils. It's a complete and utter scam.
Yeah.
So they've got this whole scarcity thing. So it's going to run out. So like now
it's been running out since I was a kid in the 70s.
Yeah.
In 10 years' time, we won't have any more oil. I mean, you're probably about the same age as me, and it's been my whole life. I've heard the same nonsense. Oh, we're going into an ice age. We get global warming and all this garbage. It's constant fear porn. Constant.
Of course it is. Yeah. I remember reading a book when I was at school in the 70s, and it was about all telling us how we're going to head towards an ice age.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Later, it's like, no, everything's melted. Well, which one is it?
Yeah.
So we can't scare them with the ice anymore because they're just getting like good woolly jumpers on. So we'll tell them it's all going to melt and drown them instead.
Yeah, and then they changed it to climate change because then it includes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything that happens, like my favorite one. I'm from Australia. My favorite one was when they had the wildfires in Australia, and they said it's climate change that's caused it. And it's like, hang on a minute, what about all the people they arrested for arson? Okay, it's so stupid. It is so stupid. And then in California, the same thing. They tried to say it was climate change when actually it was they hadn't managed the forest properly. And the whole thing is just everything is a piss take. They're taking the piss out of us, and they're laughing in our faces because they know that we don't know. And this is the whole reason I wanted to have these kind of conversations. Now, I did a video yesterday. I just put it up today where I talked about, as we move through this period of what's going on with the financial collapse that's happening, and it is, where people are not seeing it because it's this normalcy bias. Oh, well, it's always been this way. It'll always be this way. And we can clearly see it's not, right? So what I've seen many, many times in the past, and I'm sure we'll see it again here, is the rich people walk away from this with a big bundle of money in their pockets, and we all get fingered, right? So how does this come about? I mean, I briefly explained it, but the rich people, wealthy people, don't own anything in their name, right? Because what they do is they extract it all from their straw man and they put it in a private trust, so that they don't own anything. So it's not their straw man that owns it, it's in their private trust. So can you explain how that movement, or what that means, the private trust, in relation to your straw man, and what that means with your possessions like your home and things like that? If you can.
Yeah, well, like the system that we've got, it is the matrix system. So that you've got through the birth certificate, they create the person. So the person, it can be what they call like a natural human being. Okay, and this is another scam, which it ties in. So like the human hue is just meaning a color. All right, so all they're saying is the same as if you know anything about law, studied law. If it's not really law, then it's just the color of law, pretend law, which is like, when you're talking about a person then or a human, and you're not really talking about a man, you're talking about the color of man, so it's fake. All right, so it's just there smacking you around the face. It's just if you can read it and pay attention.
And
right?
understand the words, and the legal definition of a word is not what we understand that word to mean. Like, understand.
Exactly, yeah, all legalese, so that's like they're speaking a completely different language, and obviously you have to be a lawyer, barrister, solicitor to actually know that, and if you're not, then you just like wander through life saying these words and getting yourself into all sorts of trouble. But the straw man aspect, right?
I do apologize about that, folks. We had a bit of a break in the transmission there. So please, Peter, if you can remember exactly where you were, or close to remember where you were.
Yeah, well, we're just talking about like the legal name or the straw man name, and the actual trusts and the private trusts. So really, the what you were saying is, how do they protect themselves, by not owning anything? So again, going back to that guy, J.D. Rockefeller, he said a lot of very famous things, but another thing that he did say there, he says that make sure you own nothing and control everything. Now, on the private trust side, when he actually passed, what they're doing, and again, this is, I've studied going way back in history with the private trusts and trusts themselves. Now, these people that have developed all of these systems. You know, this is going back. If you can take it all the way back to ancient Rome, and then you know, ancient Egypt. You know, and the most ridiculous thing there, they think that they could have made those, like, you know, pyramids 5,000 years ago, and they can't do it now.
Not
with
a
all
chance.
the technology that they have. You know, so you know, this is a massive scam that this goes on. But you know, these people, they think that they are coming back. All of the satanic rituals that they do, and all of the you know, the whole evil that they go through, their idea is they're coming back. So they're putting everything in trust so that it passes on to the next generations, because they think it's going to be them. This is, you know, this is what they're actually stating. So what they're doing is they're actually creating the wealth, but then they're protecting it by putting it into these private trusts. Now, a private trust is just, it is the thing with it being, you've got two sets. You've got a statutory and a private one. On a statutory, when you're looking at on the legal society, that means that it's tied to acts and statutes, which means it's tied to a government. So on the private side, it's a private trust. You set it up there, you know, as a man and a woman, and it's treated differently and it's separate. It's not tied to acts and statutes. It does not come under the legal side. You know, it's funny because I get told lots of times when I'm dealing with, let's, you know, like clowns in costumes, and they say, look, this is all a private trust. And they went, well, that's not legal. I went, yes, exactly. It's not legal. It's lawful. It comes under equity. And they're like, that makes no sense. You know, it's not even 2D, they're 1D. It's just like completely gone, lost.
Yeah.
So, you know, what we're doing is we're actually taking, we're having our name, right? Say, for instance, the legal name, the straw man name, you know, you said, and we're using that to be a trustee. All right. Now, us as the man, the woman, and our sons and daughters, we're going to put them as the beneficiaries of a trust, and we're going to create a private trust. So on the trust, you would put your property. So if you imagine, if we go back to when we had lost all of that property, if that had been in a private trust, then it wouldn't have been lost. But because it's tied to that the legal fiction name, then it can be attacked easy because it's all attached to acts and statutes. So what they're doing is everything that they're putting into private trusts. So we're just copying them. We're just doing what they have told us to do. So, and the good way, I read a book recently, and what they said, the same thing with the Rockefellers. What they were doing is they're not letting anyone know who gets their assets. That nobody could tell how many trusts John D. Rockefeller had actually created. He created hundreds of them. And then there was a trust and a trust and a trust and a trust. Nobody knows how much he was worth when he died because it was all hidden in private trusts. And nobody knows who the beneficiaries were or how much the beneficiaries received because it was all in private trusts. And they still don't know to this day. And now the families just continue and getting bigger and stronger, and everything is in private trusts, and nobody can find anything, including the information. Now, what is it they're trying to get from us all the time? It's just information. They're trying to put us all in all these boxes. It's all just data harvesting, information harvesting, and while they keep all of theirs private. So we need to copy them and start putting ourselves into private trusts, our assets and our information into private trust to protect it from this onslaught of the globalists that are just trying to literally cripple everything, which has been going on for like thousands upon thousands of years. It's just we're in it now.
Yeah. So when you talk about that, and you when we hear words from people like Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum, where he states, it's 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy. So we could actually turn that around on them, and if we were to put all of our assets and the things that we've built up over our lifetime, if we were to put them all into private trust, then we would own nothing. The straw man would own nothing, and we would be happy because it's not attached to the statutory, the legal side of the world, the matrix that we're living in. Is that right?
That is exactly right. So we will own nothing but control everything, and we'll definitely be happy. Now, whereas if we do it their way and their great reset, I don't think anybody's going to be that. Well, some people will be. Just tell me what to do all day, I'll be happy. I don't care.
Yeah.
But Yeah, reverse it on them.
So I've also heard, I was listening to a video the other day, and it was saying there was a trust set up at our birth, right? This trust is set up at our birth. Now that trust, from this information I looked at, said that the Queen has to allocate our birth weight in gold to each of us in a trust at our birth. Okay, this is what this was saying, and is that the case, or have you seen that information before? And if it and as we go through our life, and because we don't know about this trust that we're the creditors of, so all that is all the credit that we have over our lifetime is actually we're credited by this trust that was set up at our birth, and all the credit that is given to us over our lifetime is actually drawing on that trust. Now, as we, the people, don't know about this trust, and our families don't know about that trust, when we pass, that trust then passes back to the state because it's not claimed by us or our families. Have you heard that, or is that the case, or how does that work?
Well, it's kind of like that, you know, because what happens is when, especially on what you're saying there, maybe it is the weight in gold, but everything's digital now anyway, right? So it's just like buttons are pressed and they create these bonds. So when you're born, that birth certificate does become a bond, and the bond is then sold as security on the stock exchange, on the securities exchange, and it's the same thing. And everything that happens, right, throughout your life is going to get traded upon. So you get a birth certificate, has a number, so it creates a bond. You have your national insurance certificate, which is the national insurance itself. It tells you it's insurance, it's national insurance. So you are insured. There is a life insurance policy on your life. And that's how they sell it, and they get access to that trust that you're talking about. The SETA KV trust is what it's called. And then, you know, even things like the marriage certificate. So you're getting married, you apply for a license. Now, if you think about it, you know, like, you know, instead of just going and doing, well, that's what everyone does. Why do you need a license to be with someone that you love and you want to be with? It's unreal. I have to have a license, but it creates a number. So like that creates another bond so that they're going to sell. Okay, anything, go to prison, they're going to create a number and it's going to get sold. When you die, this creates a death certificate, right? And then they trade it on the stock exchange. They even trade you and sell you in death.
Well, this is the word I was trying to think of before. Was it country's GDP, gross domestic product? That's what we represent. We are the lifeblood of everything that happens, because without human interaction and our energy and the things that we put our energy putting into things, nothing has value, because we are the value, because it is our energy, our sweat, and our everything that we do that contributes to this GDP that's traded on the exchanges every day.
Yeah, so it's like our sweat equity then. So, which is taking it back to the money side and the money creation side. Now, you see that we are the energy and we are the credit. So, you know, if you take it back to like the First World War, well, you can go further back than that and go to the Napoleonic War. It's all to do with war, and that was when you know, the Rothschilds first bankrupted the English royal family.
Yeah.
And they did it through the Battle of Waterloo. So Rothschild, being the most prominent figure in the stock exchange, the business world, he pretended, right, that Napoleon had won. So he started to sell all of his stocks and shares on the stock exchange in London. So everything crashed because everybody started to copy him.
Yeah.
So once it had all crashed and it was all worthless, he bought
it back on pennies on the dollar. Yeah.
Yeah. So then he owned everything there, and obviously all the money that was supplied to the English royal family to fight this war, they owed it to him now, and they had no money to pay. So they bankrupted the entire nations, and they've been running that royal family ever since. I can't remember his name. I think it was Jacob, who was in Nathan Meyer was the Rothschild in England who bankrupted it, and Jacob was the one in France who was giving all the money to Napoleon.
Yeah.
So, you know, they just funded both sides because they were going to win no matter what.
Every single war has been funded by the same people.
Yeah.
And it is, you can go even further back in history, and I spoke about this many times as well. The Babylonians, we go back to ancient Babylonia, and the Canaanites that left Babylon and traveled up through Europe, up into what we call now is the sort of Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Russia. They were up there and they were forced out, and they went into Ukraine, and that was the start of the fall of the Russian Tsars, because these same people, the Rothschilds and all the offshoots of these Canaanites were coming in underneath the Tsars of Russia, and they were destroying it, the country, and they've done it ever since. The same as George Soros, when he nearly bankrupted the UK by underselling the pound back in the 80s, I think it was. It's all the same people. It's all the same people. It's all the same offshoots of the same families.
And then if we on talking about on the money, because it's all about like our energy and the gold. So in about like 1914, right, that's when they started to suspend the gold being tied to the value of the pound and the dollar. And what they said at the time was, well, we're going into a First World War. We don't want to be trading the gold abroad, so we want to keep the gold. So everybody, they withdrew the gold from the value of the pound. And I think it was, and you got to think all of those things that were happening all around. The same thing that was happening over in the United States, with the Federal Reserve Act as well.
1913. Yeah. The sinking of the Titanic. It's all linked in the same.
Thinking of the Titanic. I mean, it's it's just too easy to see. They got rid of people on the Titanic that were opposing the Federal Reserve Act.
Of course.
Now, when the Federal Reserve was back, when it was passed on Christmas Day, and there was nobody there.
Yeah, overnight, in the night.
So it wasn't even passed.
It's not ratified, no.
But here it is, the Federal Reserve, and everything's Federal Reserve. It's just the Bank of England. It's not English. It's owned by the Rothschild family. It's a privately
owned.
So it creates money for the government just out of thin air, on the promise of our sweat equity.
Yeah,
it's all on the promise of us.
Yeah,
you see. So once they got, I think it was in the 1970s, they got rid of gold completely. So it
71, 14th of August.
Right. So now it was like they created a full-on fiat currency. And what we do know through history is every single fiat currency that there ever has always returned to its real value, which is zero. Right. And if you look on any note that you've got there, it's like, and it'll tell you on there, all it is just says, I promise to pay.
Yeah.
It's valueless. It's absolutely valueless. Now, the thing that you're talking about with the credit, right? All of the credit belongs to us because we are a source of unlimited credit, which brings it on to when you want to go and get a bank loan or a mortgage. Again, it's talking about the fractional reserve banking system. So when you're going in, you think you're applying for a loan, you are actually creating a promissory note, exactly the same as that. Mm-hmm. So what you've done, and you think that you've applied for a £200,000 mortgage, $200,000 mortgage, you've actually created a credit note of £200,000. You've made a deposit. If anything, you have loaned the bank that money. The bank haven't got any money.
No, they touch a few keys and they create it from nothing. Based on their holdings of customers' savings that they have in their bank accounts.
Well, not even that, because you've actually just done it. You've created that promissory note, so they now go and sell that on the securities exchange. Once they've sold that on the securities exchange, which they'll sell, normally it's supposed to be 9 times, right? So your $200,000 has now been sold for $200,000 9 times. Then they put one part of it into your bank account, that you see it in there and think, oh, wow, I've got money that I've borrowed.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have to repay, right? Well, you can only redo something if it's already been done before. So they're asking you to pay it again.
Yeah.
And then they keep selling that security, that note. You've actually made a financial instrument. So, it's easy to read. If you have a mortgage, go and read the small print on your mortgage agreements. I help people try to get rid of them all the time, and it was just reading a woman's edge, and I read it out to her. Look, it says here that you've signed consent for them, allows them to sell your note, and they call it a note, and securitize it. And once you've signed this, they have the permission forever. They don't have to ask you again. And they can keep on selling it and selling it and selling it. And it's written in the document. We can securitize this instrument. But even if people read that, they'd be thinking, I haven't got a clue what that
What it
means.
means.
What does securitizing an instrument mean?
Yeah.
This is not a guitar, you know, but that's exactly what they do. So that we're talking about at the beginning about the crash, 2007, the Lehman Brothers, when they collapsed, and they collapsed so fast because they hadn't done the 9 times securitization. Theirs was over 40.
Yeah.
So they had they were literally like sort of on thin air.
Yeah.
That's why it collapsed so quick. It just disappeared literally overnight.
Yeah, fractional reserve banking, they call it. Fractional
Yeah.
reserve, where they can sell up to 90% of what the customers hold in their accounts, and they can then lend that out, and they do that over and over and over again. They don't have any money. The banks are bankrupt. They haven't got any of their own money. All of their money is based on what we deposit. Our deposits in their bank account becomes theirs.
Yeah. So if you think like back again, 2007, 2008, when this was happening, the crash was happening, and one of the banks where I live is called Northern Rock, and they shut the bank, right? Because obviously everybody was queuing up outside trying to get the money out, but they haven't got any money.
Yeah.
You know, so you go to these little machines in the wall that you can get 200 quid out, and then it stops you. You're not allowed to use your card again until the next day, right? But you go to the bank, I want my 20, 30, 50 grand out of there. Oh, we haven't got it.
Yeah.
You know, you can't have it.
Yeah.
And that's the 100% truth. And anybody can go and try and do that now. Go if you've got like, you know, more than 50 grand in, walk in and say, I want that money. You'll not get it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like.
But this is the thing. I mean, this is one of my notes as well. We think that there's laws out there to protect us, but that's not the case, is it? The law is there to protect what? The system or us?
It's definitely not there to protect us. You know, I mean, just you know, you see these cars and you've got like the little flying monkeys inside of them coming from the Wizard of Oz. They're getting sent to harass everybody, and it's got written on this side of the cars, you know, proud to protect and serve. But that isn't us. They're proud to protect and serve, like, you know, what the rich and the wealthy that have created this matrix system. That's who they're, you know, serving and protecting. It isn't for us. There is no law that is there that is there to protect man and woman, or at least not enact the statute anyway.
No, that's what I was just about to get into next, which is natural law or universal law. So we all come into this reality with certain things that we know, right? We all do. We all know that of right and wrong. You know, it's wrong to steal. It's wrong to kill. There's certain things that we all know coming into this reality. We know that that's wrong or right. You know, we have an understanding of wrong and right, even when we're little babies. And yet we're told that those certain universal or natural laws superseded by the law of the land, which is the case law or whatever. So in some cases, it's okay to murder someone, right? There's certain rules that you can get by. Well, if there's a war, it's okay to murder people. That's okay, you know. So they make up these rules that circumvent this natural law, this universal law. But the universal laws are there. Well, you know, the Bible would call them the 10 Commandments. You know, but it all comes down at the end of the day to stealing, doesn't it? Really, because if you're stealing, or if you're coveting your neighbor's wife, you're stealing your neighbor's wife. Or if you murder someone, you're stealing their life. You know, it's all about stealing at the end of the day, taking from someone else what you don't have. So can we go into that, the natural law, sort of universal law part? I mean, that's there sort of as our protection. That's the only laws that we really need to think about, right?
Well, that is the only law, you see. And this is, people get angry with me, and I try to explain sort of like, you know, when they were saying, oh, you know, we're living under common law and we are common law and protected by common law. Say, well, that's not what common law is. You know, it's like you've got the only law, the real law is the law that's common to man. I call it common to man or common to mankind. It's how you express your law. So we're all under the creator. Now you can call him whatever you name that you want him. It could be God, it could be Allah, it could be Jehovah. It doesn't matter. It's a creator. We do know that. So it's coming out of the creation of the universe. It's coming out of something far more powerful. So we know that we're under the creator. Now that the creator has the laws, do no harm. Now, again, it can, you know, stealing, it's still doing harm. Like you said, if you're killing them, you're stealing their life, it's still doing harm. You know, you don't do harm. And if you can live in harmony with your fellow man, mankind, womankind, then you've got natural balance and everything should be there. And you have to act as a man, as a woman, and be responsible as a grown-up, and that's going to be a harmonious life. But if you look at it, that is natural law. That is what people think is common law.
Right.
But that's just such a terrible misnomer. That like that is natural law, universal law, law of the creator, whatever it was. But that's what it is. Do no harm, right? Be it from the Ten Commandments or whichever. But we know that we can accept that, and you innately have that in you. Common law,
yeah,
the real common law. Right, as in, like, what it's described as would be described by barristers, by lawyers, by judges as law,
as case
made
law
by judges
yeah.
in the High Court, which is precedents set by big cases. That is what they'll call common law. So you have to be careful, on what you're actually saying, because if you're saying you live under common law, then you're living under what they've just decided.
Yeah. For sure.
And they've decided
that have been determined already, that's common law. I mean, when I first started getting into this and I looked at the definition, I've been speaking to other people as well who are in this field, much like yourself, who've been down this road themselves. And, I go in and I look at information, look at words, and common law comes up as settled case law. Where I hear other people talking about common law, they have a strange definition of natural law. So like you say, it is about the terminology and the words that you use. And if you don't use the right words, then and this is another thing I've heard, that another friend of mine who was saying that there's different jurisdictions that you operate in. Now you have to understand the jurisdiction that you're operating in to use the right terminology for that jurisdiction, because if you don't, like you say, the legal words of that jurisdiction will trip you up every single time. So, if you're in court, for instance, and a judge says, do you understand? It doesn't mean do you comprehend, it means do you stand under me? And it's things like that people get tripped up by all the time, because they think that they're hearing one thing, but what they don't understand is the legal fiction, and the legal use of those words doesn't mean the same thing. The comprehension of those words isn't the same when we're talking about what we think we're talking about the same thing. So I think that the common law, people need to get their head around. If you're talking in common law terms, common law doesn't mean natural law. Common law means settled case law that sets the precedent. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. And the thing is, like the jurisdiction is everything. So when we're talking about being a man or being a woman, then we're standing in natural law. Then they have no jurisdiction over us, because we will not accept the case law or the common law or the acts and the statutes.
Or entering into a contract with that.
Yeah, everything outside of natural law truly is a contract.
Right.
It truly is. So you have to be contracted to do it. Even say for instance, the Road Traffic Act. Now we know that you've consented because you have a license already. So you're going into the public to do that. So you've got to, you can dip in and out of the public and private, if you know what you're doing and you practice it, and you accept it. Okay, like a transitional phase kind of thing, because in reality, what we're traveling towards and what we want to get mankind to move back into harmonious life by living under natural law, whereas like look at it, everything's been pushed towards like the statute being in their jurisdiction.
For sure.
Okay, by being under like Klaus Schwab, which is like, you're going to own nothing and we rule the world. That's it. But
it's vile. It is. It's completely vile. Now, this is we're getting into the sort of we've gone through so many the sort of the background, the understanding of what the straw man is. To get people up to speed where we are now. In relation to everything that comes after this is the key that to understand. First, we need to understand what it is. We need to understand the background, where it came from, what it relates to, case law and all that kind of thing. Now, the next section we're going to look at is how your straw man relates to debt and debt instruments, and what you can do, what's available to you to be able to extract yourself from those situations that you've got yourself into, not knowing that you entered into that contract fraudulently. Okay, so let's start down that route, and we'll just go. How does the straw man relate to debt, and is there a way that you can use that straw man and that understanding of that straw man to release yourself from that?
Yeah, well, obviously everything, we just mentioned contract there before. So if there's a financial instrument, then this is just a contract. So if you've well, you will have signed right on behalf of your straw man. If you go and get a bank loan, for instance, let's just keep it simple. It's gone in, you've got a bank loan, £20,000. You've actually signed your sign of nature, your signature. You've provided them with that energy. That is the energy. That is your future sweat equity. You've actually just gone and created that credit, right? So we know how they create the money. We just explained it before. So you're not actually in debt because you're not lending, all right, or they're not lending, you're not borrowing. So what happens is that you're now tied to this financial instrument, and they're asking you for repayments. Now we try and do like audits on the paperwork to try and find the wording repayment, and then if we can find the wording the repayment, then we challenge them to say, well, we need you to do audited accounts to show us where this money come from, and they can't do it.
Because they never had the money to give you in the first place. They created it from nothing. So they, firstly, I mean, to understand this from a basic perspective, I've gone and got a car loan, for instance, and they have literally created the credit that they've given me out of nothing. They don't have money or equities or commodities to back that up. All they've done is created the money out of nothing from that signature. Yeah. So there's nothing behind it. So because they can't prove that there's nothing behind it, then what does that mean?
Well, there's two options that you have. First option is like do what they call like what we would call a commercial lien. So we would actually be like sending them a series of documents that they have to actually answer or rebut the points. So we're saying, look, tell us where the money came from, show us all of your audited accounts, show me where it was before it got put into my account, and they can't show you any of that because they've literally clicked a few buttons and boom, there it goes. Magic.
But in saying that, let's just say, like, I go into investments. I've got investments in cryptos and things like that. Now, if you want to invest through the stock market or in cryptos or anything, you have to prove where you got the money from to be able to invest. You have to do that. It's called anti-money laundering rules that they put in place, AML, and KYC rules that they have in these exchanges. KYC is know your customer. So first they have KYC, so you have to prove who you are, your straw man, and then it's anti-money laundering, AML, to prove, anti-money laundering, AML, to prove where you got the money from. So you have to be able to prove, okay, I sold a car and that got the money from there, and then I was able to use that for an investment. But they can't do that because it didn't exist in the first place, correct?
Exactly. So it's like one rule for us and one rule for them, isn't it?
Right, but you can actually use that against them, is what you're saying.
You can do, and you can go in and use what we call the commercial lien process, where we're actually going to have a series of like questions that gets put to them, and then they have to try and answer it and provide the information, which they obviously can't. So then we do like an affidavit, which like follows up from the commercial lien, and it's called perfecting it. So what it means is you go through this whole process, and eventually you can actually put it to them, and like there you cannot prove at all via a contract or any source of finance that was provided to me. So we're challenging the legality of the contract, and it is just because you're talking legal terms on there, right? So and you can shut that down and not pay. So the other thing to do though as well, right, if they turn around and so they could turn around then and say, well, we're going to send it to collection, a debt collection agency. This is another scam that people don't understand, right? And now there is the ability to sell somebody else's debt. You do have that ability. So if you are a bank, just let's forget the fraud part of it, but you can do an assignment or a deed of assignment or a deed of novation or innovation. So you actually have, because all debt has a deed, okay, and it all has to be in writing. They can't just decide this. So they're going to move it. If they were selling it to like a debt collector over there, they would have to sell the deed of assignment to the debt collector.
But you have to accept that, don't you? You have to accept that your debt has been sold, because you're not in contract with the debt collector.
So, but they can sell the debt as long as it's done through a deed of novation.
Right.
All right. So like with a novation, what it means is you're swapping one party for another. Okay. Right. But they have to send that to you as well. They have to send proof that they've bought the deed of novation, or there has been a novation, so they buy the deed of the debt, you see, so it comes into you. So the deed of assignment. and they
But you
send
have
it
to,
to
you have
via,
to, you have to physically get that. If you don't
yes.
physically get that, then what does that mean?
Well, it's fraud.
No, but as in, if that's not provided to you, if they say, okay, we sent it to you in the mail, you didn't get it, then
Well, what happens is, right, which is one of the best things that they've actually done, and I'm pretty sure that this is a mistake they've made through the DPA, which is the Data Protection Act, and also GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulations. Pretty sure that they were set up to try and protect what they were doing. Right. But by doing that, they've actually offered us tools that we can use to fight what they're committing, this fraud. So what should happen if it was real, then they would sell that deed, the deed of assignment, to the debt collector. The debt collector then, both of them at the same time, would have to be writing to you through recorded delivery, stating that this novation had happened, a deed of novation. They've moved it from one party to another, and they've bought the debt. Never ever happens. It's far too complicated, far too expensive, right? So what they only do is the bank themselves, right? Once they're sick of you, you haven't paid for 3 months, they will close your account, which it's finished now. You don't owe anything. But then what they do is they sell your data. You see? So they sell your data, and what they'll do is they'll put, like, no, you might think, oh, they'll not sell mine. I only owe 10 grand, I only owe 5 grand. They're going to put your data in a huge block of data worth probably 1 million, 2 million, whatever. And it goes onto a website very similar to these auction websites that we know of. And these companies buy that blocks of data
for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, or for next to nothing. You know, so then what they do is, you know, if you've missed payments, then you're going to get letters now from these hideous debt collection agencies, and they get more and more ferocious all the time. A lot of people pay straight away out of panic and fear, or then they make payment arrangements with these other people, you know, and they're literally making money straight away, profits straight away, because they've got your data. They're trying to tell you they've bought the debt, and they use trickery words again, trickery words. So when you have this deed of assignment, the deed is the key. Has to be the deed, and the deed of assignment makes a novation, right? Swapping one party for another.
Right.
All they've done is bought your data, and then they'll write to you and they'll say it's been assigned to us. No deed of assignment, and they'll keep on talking about the assignment. That means nothing.
Right.
So what we do is we send them. Now this might not sound big, but it's really powerful. We can attack them for having our data. So we can send them what's called a data subject access request. Now you've got to be good with them. You've got to be clever with them, because they're still going to fill you full of nonsense with their replies, and they'll tell you that it's been assigned to them, when this means nothing. If they haven't followed the Law of Property Act 1925, section 136, part 1, which states that they must have a deed of assignment, and they or section 53, part 1, whereas it's they've actually joined forces with a bank, if it was a bank, and both of them must chase it at the same time. Right, that's the only way to do it, and it has to be in writing. All right, so you either have like that assignment or the deed of assignment.
Sure.
Okay, and it just simply never happens because it's too complicated.
Right.
So we attack them and say, provide us with all that information, and they come back with loads of rubbish.
Yeah.
So once you actually do that, they have to reply, because this is their world.
Yeah.
Right. They have to reply with full compliance, transparency, and fairness with under GDPR and DPA guidelines.
Yeah.
And they never do. They come up with, oh, I've heard, even some of them just put, like lately, a couple of weeks ago, they just put not applicable. You know, that we ask them all these questions, they just put not applicable. Like, what do you mean it's not applicable?
So what do you do? Do you withdraw your applicability as a law-abiding company that is acting within the legal process? You're not applicable to the legal process? I'm sorry.
Exactly. Just insane. But, you know, they call these people as well, they'll call them the data protection officer. Sounds very fancy. A data protection officer. It's anybody who said, right, who's going to do that job? Right, you're doing it. They haven't got any legal training. They haven't got any lawful training. They don't know anything about the Law of Property Act.
Yeah.
Right? They don't know any of that. They're just like, well, you know, it's like, we've got your data.
Yeah.
We're allowed to have your data because we said so. You know.
Okay. So you bought my data from a third party.
Yeah, but they said, no, we're now assigned the debt, you know, or some of them even say, we bought your debt, it's ours. They said, well, show me the deed of assignment. I don't need one. Well, you
But
do.
surely they can buy your debt, and even if they went through the deed of assignment. I didn't sign a contract with them. I never signed a contract with them, so I'm not contracted to anybody other than the original contractee, which was let's just say it's a credit card company. I signed a contract with them. I never signed a contract with a collector. Okay, sorry about that, folks. So I had a dodgy version, a dodgy copy of the Zoom. I had to update it also for the third round. We'll go back in. So I was, before we went before it shut down again, we were talking about credit card companies, unsecured debt, that kind of thing, and how that relates to your straw man. So let's talk about council tax and unsecured debt, because as the name suggests, unsecured means that it's not secured against your property or anything like that. So let's have a bit of a conversation about the council tax and unsecured debt. And the council tax, we've briefly spoken about this before. In council tax documents, you were saying stopped in 2003. So if we can start there with the council tax, and then we'll work on to the unsecured debt part. And if there is, the people that are watching this, obviously this is relating to the UK, but the UK, this is much the same as around the world as well, especially in Europe, because the GDPR applies to Europe as well. But the information that we're going to provide here is essentially for the UK and people within the UK. And we're also going to be talking about the tools and the things that you have available, information to have available, and where to find that, and where we can direct people to for more information and to help themselves to do their own research. So let's start off with the council tax, and let's move from there.
Yeah, well, on the council tax, I mean, everybody's got to make their own decision on what they want to do or how they're going to move forward on things. But there's two things that I've sort of like touched on recently and put people towards, and one of them is what we call like the knock challenge, to call it, which means no obligation challenge, because you have no obligation, and the council cannot prove that you have any obligation to pay a council tax. Now, I think it's like the Local Government Act. I think it's, I can't remember what it was, like 1887 was it, or 1882. That states there that the councils are liable, and they have to be providing everything for all of the residents that are in their area. But now they've just changed it through all these many different variations till we get up to like that hideous witch, Margaret Thatcher, who introduced the poll tax, is what it was called initially, and then from the poll tax come up the changes to have the council tax. Now
before we go any further with that, just one second. Now, I was speaking with people about this the other day here in the UK, obviously, and they were saying, but if you don't pay your council tax, how are they going to empty the bins and do all those things that we look for in our council, sweep the roads and do all that kind of stuff? If we don't pay your council tax, you're a bad person because you're not contributing to your local area. I've heard that before, and I'm sure you have as well. So we need to address that as well right from the start, because is your council tax actually going towards those things, or what's it for?
No, it's not going to anything whatsoever. I tell you, I mean, I'm actually, where I live is very, very like secluded, right on the beach. It's like, not in the town or anything like that, but it's like the biggest town near us, which is like the same county. So we're all paying council tax into the same county. This is like no man's land. It's which where I used to have my martial arts gym, and that town is like going to the dogs faster than anything. It's just like the place is falling to pieces. It's disgusting. But like they've got an enormous amount of people that are paying a lot of money going into this council tax. Now, I know from a friend that was a councillor, didn't last very long because he was talking too much about it, that they've got millions that are invested into all sorts of weapons firms, all sorts of pharmaceutical firms, everything that you would not want to have your money invested into, right? Creating war for like murdering people. Now they've got excess funds, right, that are like worth millions upon millions of pounds. Right? Nothing what you pay goes to do anything. Now, the thing is, like, we can't really talk about it too much on this. We haven't got much time left anyway. But there is a process on a 1099 where you can actually get access to regain the funds that you've actually paid out. You can actually access your own trust, right, that they created when you were born. It's very complicated. It's far too long to go into it now. But the money that is getting collected by, if you're paying tax, all of it is going to war, all that, but it's directed. Everything that you pay goes to the IRS in America. It does not get collected and spent on, like, sweeping the roads or anything like that, or collecting your bins. I pay to have a garden bin collected, right? It only gets collected every 2 weeks. It costs £43 a year.
For the year, yeah. And then what they do is they convert all that lawn clippings, all the grass, and everything that gets collected in those the green bins. They connect that into compost and then sell it.
Yeah. And then you recycle, right? So if you imagine, if you pay that 43 for the year to collect that, then that's what must be the other bins then as well, logically. So like your recycle bin, right? So they take that away, you're paying whatever thousands for, and then they sell all that recycling as well.
And then the profit off that, yeah.
So like, forget, like, and at the end of the day, they say, oh, but what about the people who work for the council? They need their wages. Well, their wages do not come out of your council tax.
They come from the central government, from the central government, that all of our taxes and everything goes to pay anyway. It's a government agency.
No one's losing any jobs. No one's losing any money. Right. So don't worry about that. It's just like, you don't have to worry about that. No. But like I say, I'm not telling anybody what to do. Just that everyone has to do whatever they want. They've got to do their own research. Just take it. I'm just talking about what I have seen over the last 2 years. The amount of people that have been pushed into hideous hardship because of what they've done, locking everyone down, losing all those jobs, not having the money to pay it. Never mind not wanting to pay it. So, like the councils themselves, excuse me, they're the biggest mafia that you could ever meet. They are so corrupt. Now, if they don't care if you're having a problem, you can't pay. They're not interested in that. So what they'll do is they'll start giving you grief and hassle through debt collectors again, third-party interlopers, so you can easily get rid of them with a GDPR notice, a DSAR. Ask them what you're doing with my data, who gave you the permission to have it, have no contract with you, go away. Yeah. Right. But then they're going to issue you with what they call a summons.
Yeah.
All right. And then from that summons, right, and there's loads of evidence and loads of different videos on there. This is a complete false summons. They don't do a summons, and it comes from a magistrate's court. How can it come from a magistrate's court? There's two sets of courts in the land, magistrate's court and the county court. If you have a debt, it has to be civil, so it goes to the county court. Now, if you go and commit a criminal offence, remember that's not a crime, a criminal offence to the legal society, it'll get dealt with a magistrate's court. That's the difference. Mm-hmm. So
everything to do with debt, except when it relates to HMRC, which is Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. Every other piece of debt is counted as a civil matter other than the HMRC debt. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. So it could only get dealt with a county court.
Right.
But then and it's the same. It's the same with, like if you haven't paid your gas bill, electric bill, water, or the stuff that falls out the sky for free, and now you have to pay the government for, and it must be dealt through county court, but it's always dealt with the magistrate's court, because what they do is they go and hire the office. They pay to hire the office, and then they actually fraudulently use that the stamp, right, the magistrate's court, to issue a summons, which is completely fraudulent. They cannot have that's a criminal warrant from a criminal court, right? And now they're doing it because you weren't able to pay your council tax or pay your electric bill, right? So then they come out with what from the summons, they'll summon you to the court, summon the dead, right? Because they're only summoning your legal fiction, which is dead anyway.
Yeah.
And now you can't go to the court, by the way, because it doesn't exist. And we had loads of videos which I'm trying to tell people, so, oh, go then. And they've went on the video, they said, no, it's not here. There's nothing here. Because they've just hired the building. They're sitting inside the building. It's just an office. And they've got like someone who's calling themselves a magistrate, right? And they're stamping all of these liability orders. And they send the liability orders out, right? Well, now we're talking now, this is like, you know, May 2022. They stopped those liability orders. They got rid of the paperwork for them in the 1st of October 2003.
Right.
So they don't even exist.
Right.
So they should not be there, and they're still sending them out.
So you have no obligation to pay council tax.
No.
Right.
And they cannot prove an obligation.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's council tax dealt with. So here in the UK, like I said, and like you've said as well, if you're going to go down that route, prepare yourself to enter battle, because they're not going to give up easily, right?
Oh, no.
They're going to make your life misery. And if you don't know the legal terminology and everything that you need to know going into this, don't start it. That's my advice. Don't start unless you know everything you need to know, or you have, you know, advice on how definitely to navigate through this minefield, which is what it is. Because if you don't know the jurisdiction you're operating in, the words that to use in those jurisdictions to make sure that you are being comprehensive in your understanding, then I would advise that you don't go down that route. But
exactly.
That said, let's move on to unsecured debt like loans and credit cards. Now, as we've said before, loans and this debt is created from nothing. It's not real. It's all fraud. Are you legally obliged to pay unsecured debt?
No. So first of all, we know that they haven't given us any money to repay.
Right.
All right. Remember the word repay. You can only redo something that's already been done. So
right.
they're asking for repayments with interest.
Yeah.
You know,
with interest on something they created from nothing in the first place.
Yeah. Exactly. So, you know, it's very similar to that's not the right way of putting it, but you can fight them similar way to the council tax with these GDPR and DPA regulations. So what will happen is with the GDPR, they have to stick to very strict rules, and they don't. They try and skim past everything, and they hope that people don't understand or sorry, they don't comprehend or don't know the information. And let's face it, 99% of people probably don't. And if they get a nasty letter from a debt collector, generally they're going to pay it just to get some peace of mind or you know, to get an easy life, right? Even if they haven't got the money. So if you have not paid, right? So we were talking about the deed of novation. We're talking about the deed of assignment, right? So if they haven't got that, then they have no contract with you whatsoever. Then you have no liability, the ability to be lied to. Okay, you do not have to pay them anything. So if they've sold, if the banks are like, they'll close your account, they'll literally close it down, all right, and they will sell your data to a collection agency, then the collection agency are going to contact you. They've got no contract with you. They've got no deed of assignment with you. They have got what they call a chose in action, CHOSE. If they have no chose in action, they cannot prove that they are allowed to take you to court for a debt. That is a fact.
Right.
So if you can use what we call the data subject access requests correctly, very, very specifically asking specific questions about the actual laws that they're talking about, the Law of Property Act, 1925, section 136, part 1. They must have a deed of assignment, and it must be sent to you, recorded delivery, once they've actually took deed of assignment. Not a notice of assignment. That's what they always say. Well, we sent you a notice of assignment. No, you sent me a letter telling me that you bought me debt. Now, that is nothing. I need a deed of assignment.
You need to prove that to me. How can you prove that? Yeah.
You know, where's the novation? Where's the deed of novation? Where's the deed of assignment? And they just hope you don't understand that. So you can send them the GDPR compliant DSAR. They have to respond with compliance. If they don't respond within 30 days, you have to give them a month to reply by their regulations. Then you send them an ICO, Information Commissioner's Office, notification or a notice saying you've got 7 days now to answer these questions that I've already asked you. I'll give you another 7 days, and then I'm going to file a complaint with the ICO. So the ICO are hitty missy, right? Sometimes they'll do really good. Sometimes they just, it's as if they've ignored you completely. But if you can show them in your complaint that they have not followed GDPR compliance, then they should just agree with you. Yes, they have not been compliant to GDPR regulations. Then you can file an N1 at the court, and you can send the bailiffs to them.
And that's at the which court is that? That's not magistrates court. That's the
High Court.
The High Court.
Yeah.
So they're actually committing a criminal offence by doing what they're doing. Yeah,
well, that can be a criminal offence because it's fraudulent as well. But all we're going to do is we're going to put that they have not filed they have not followed compliance with the GDPR. So we're actually putting in a tort claim against them for having our data without the authority to do so.
Right.
So we're literally turning the tables on them. So not only are we closing it down, but we're actually getting compensation as well.
Perfect. See, this is wonderful, and this is the reason I wanted to share this with people and introduce people to yourself as well, because it's difficult when you're looking around yourself, and everyone is under pressure now. And I don't care who you are, I don't care how much money you have in your pocket. Everyone is under pressure. It's skyrocketing inflation, which means it's a hidden tax. Your money is now worth less. It means it costs more of those pounds or dollars or wherever you are in the world to buy the same item through inflation. So it is tools like this, and it is tools that you've put together yourself as well, and information you've put together in conjunction with other people to try and find this knowledge to share with people. Now, we've spoken briefly before about when we first met, before we did the meeting here, before we did this talk here. Now, there's a bunch of information that you have on your website for free that people can go and look at, understanding that people are in dire financial straits right now. You've provided most of this information for free to people that they can go and do their own thing and do their own research, and then start the process with the free information that you have. Is that correct?
Yeah. And we've got loads of information, all free. We've got loads of templates that are all on the website itself, also on the Facebook group, and also on the Telegram group. You can go in. I know it's kind of overload for them. I comprehend that. I know it, but they can go in and have a look, and there's just so much information, so much templates to start working with, and also links to other people as well, and other people's channels, and you can just spread out and start to really do some research yourself on it.
For sure. Perfect. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put all this video together. Obviously, it's in 3 parts. I have to stitch it all back together, and hopefully it sort of works out. But what I'm going to do is in the description box down below, if you're new to YouTube, down underneath the video, it's just down there, there's some words. I'll have all the description of this video and the links to everything that Peter's done, all the free stuff. And your website is called claimyourstrawman.com, which the link will be down below. And on there as well, if you choose to, you can enter into a paid subscription thing that if you choose to. But as he said, there's plenty of information available. Facebook groups, Telegram groups, there's plenty of information to get you started. And then if you're still stuck, then there's another ways that you can get in touch with yourself and other people as well that's going to help people through. Yep. Now, I hope that this information helps people. I really do. I hope that this is a good starting point for people to firstly understand what we've all been living through, this matrix that we've all living in right now. And understanding that the laws that they say bind us aren't really binding to us, because they're trapping us in a legal fiction through our straw man that was created at our birth. So this is a good place to start. I hope this has been informative for the people watching. And, you know, I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Peter. I mean, I thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all the work that you've done. And thank you for the effort that you've put into bringing this information to people and allowing yourself this time. Obviously, your time is precious, as all of our time is. So thank you for your time. Thank you for the effort that you've put in and the resources that you've made available to people, which will all be in the description box down below. And as we move forward through this nightmare that we're all going to live through, as this financial collapse moves forward, and it is coming, if you don't see it, then you really need to open your eyes a bit more. But this information is key to see your survival, not only your survival, but for you to thrive and for you to have something to pass forward to future generations through possibly setting up private trusts and that kind of thing. So I appreciate you being here, Peter. Thank you so much for your time. And if you want to get in touch with Peter, all the details will be in the description box below. All the information will be there as well. And as I always say, go out into the world and do good and be good, like we're trying to do here by sharing information with people. If you like what we're doing here, share it with people. If you think this is going to be worthwhile, share it far and wide. This is what it's all about, is us, the little man, trying to sort of gain some knowledge and share that with our fellow man to bring us all up together, because it's only through all of our efforts combined that we can actually beat this and we can move forward into a world that benefits us rather than enslaves us. So thank you one and all for joining me. Thank you, Peter, again for your time. I really appreciate it. Check out the description box. Check out everything that Peter's put together on the website and obviously all the other places we're going to put in there. And come back and join us again soon. And hopefully one day in the future, I'll get to talk to you again, Peter. But thank you so much for your time today. And thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate it, and come back and join me again soon.
You're very welcome. Very, very welcome. Thank you very much for having me on.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Peter. All right, we'll look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon, folks. Ciao for now.